Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, collectors of all ages, welcome back to AussieVerse, where we are here again for Thru, the MCU. This time we are discussing Captain America, the first Avenger. How are you, Grodd? Thank you for joining me, mate.
It's good to be here. It's good to discuss, get back on track through this MCU. This one I was quite excited to watch because I do remember loving it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I felt the same way. If you do want us to discuss any other sort of topics, if you do want to interact with us, guys, please hit us up on Instagram. AussieVerse_Comx is where you can find us, where you can also find our graphic designer, A51_designs. Enough of the loving, let's get down. No, that was the plug-in. Let's get down to the loving. It's been a long day, man. Oh, take it away, my friend.
Well, I guess the first topic we'll go into, like, what were our, as I just touched on just before, what were our initial thoughts before rewatching this movie through this MCU? What were your first thoughts or your thoughts before you started to watch this?
Again, yeah. So, look, this was one of my favourite Phase 1 movies. So I was really keen to go back and watch it, to be honest, because it had been a while. Hopes were high because I'd loved it. After watching it again, hopes are definitely still met.
Yeah. I was the same. I reckon this was my favourite Phase 1. Well, one of them anyway. It was only like 4 or 5, but yeah. And I remember loving it. I remember loving all the side cast, all the way the movie developed. And so, yeah, I was the same. I was excited to watch it. It really wasn't that much of, I got to watch this. Got to get through it. No, I was excited. I couldn't wait. So, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right.
So what did you think when you watched it and rewatched it again?
Well, I picked up on a lot more this time, obviously. It's, every time I watch it, you do pick up on a couple of tiny little Easter eggs. Like, it's hard to say whether they're Easter eggs or not, but there's a lot of, like, callbacks, references, nods, things like that, I guess. So I guess they're considered Easter eggs. But yeah, man, it was really, really cool, especially things like, now you think about, like, you see the Easter egg that everybody knows about with when they're at the expo and you see the Human Torch, the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond. That's not only cool because of the history there, but also because Chris Evans played Human Torch in the original Fantastic Four. So lots of things like that. It's really, really good.
Yeah. No. Again, just not much has shifted the needle when I rewatched this. Again, I just really enjoyed it. It's quite, like, we'll get into production and the writing and stuff like that. I thought it was, especially, it's a pretty long. Back then, they weren't as long. This was a longer one. It felt like it. But I thought the storyline moved quite well. It kept on going. It told a complete story, basically. And, I just thought, there's not one moment in it that is boring. I guess you could say it's different. There's different shifts in it, like an emotional shift or a quieter shift, or a bit of a jokey one every now and again. It's got a bit of everything.
Well, you mentioned jokey, and the thing that I jotted down, because I do have actually some notes about the things that I loved and whatever about the movie. One of the things that made me think about the jokes in this film is this was back in the day when Marvel was funny, and it really worked, man. It really, really worked. Not like today where everything is funny and it's just forced down your throat, It's really refreshing to now see the older movies, I think, compared to now. Yeah.
Now the comedy bits was in it, and it was like the comedy bits was delivered by actors that can deliver comedy. So you don't get any actor just to deliver comedies. You get comedians or people that can do that as a comedy. Like, for instance, a guy who's really good at his job, and a guy which I think was almost one of the best casting, even though he's a very small character, is Tommy Lee Jones. Just watching him, he's just a natural, isn't he? Just a natural leader. He always goes on his little rambles, and And the bit he goes, then you stick a needle in his arm, it's going to go straight through. And they throw the grenade down. He goes, and when Captain America, well, when Steve Rogers jumps on, he goes, he's still skinny, all right.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very, very Tommy Lee Jones, isn't it?
Yeah. I forgot how much of a joy his character was in it.
So these are the notes. These are the things that I've jotted down quickly. Were you one of the ones that were aware that in the original Incredible Hulk there was an alternative? I don't know if it was an ending scene or just another scene where Edward Norton. You do know it, yeah, where he goes to kill himself. Yeah. So for those that don't know, Edward Norton went to kill himself. Bullet, you know, doesn't hit him, or it does hit him and bounces off. I don't know, but either way, it goes and hits ice, and you see Captain America's shield. They obviously cut that out. The other things was this is the first time you see Hydra, and I remember originally watching Captain America and being really excited that it's you finally get to see a real life Marvel gang, you know, because they'd hinted at AIM and a couple of other things I think before that, but you know this is the first time actually seeing it. I remember being annoyed about the Tesseract not being called the Cosmic Cube because that's what it is. It's the Cosmic Cube, not the Tesseract. Also, the thing that I always loved that was iconic to me about the film was when he's a skinny little runt and he picks up a trash can and he's, you know, I can do this all day. You know, you've really egged that on. You mentioned he jumps on the grenade. One thing that I liked about this as well is, and I don't think they ever did this in the comics, and if they did, please tell me because I'd like to know. However, but the serum enhances what's already there. I thought that was a really cool little take because for the movies, that really works well because now you can have an answer as to why there are so many different other failed Captain America experiments out there. Arnim Zola, Red Skull, yep. Fantastic to see those. You know, Arnim Zola's going to go more evil in a different format later. Red Skull. You know what? I'll stop there because I got more, but I think that's for later in the movie. Sorry, Grodd.
No, that's all right. I thought it was a good point too. Because I didn't know if that was comics or either. Like, good goes to better, and evil goes to worse, sort of thing. I think that is a good description of why they picked Steve Rogers in the first place.
Because it makes sense. The Abomination and I can't remember who else they've done in the MCU, but you know, there's been a couple of others that have had the version of the serum. You know.
Yeah, agree. It's like a mood serum, isn't it? So whatever you are, that's times 1,000.
Yeah, I know that if I got that serum, I'd just turn into a guy that really ate a lot of curries.
I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
I'd join some sort of basketball team.
Super basketball team.
So the cast. Do you want to move on to the cast?
Yeah, man. I mean, I loved it all.
Yeah, I think this is interesting too. Rewatching this, the fact is, like, obviously back when we watched it, we didn't know how Chris Evans was going to be like as Captain America, and I think it's quite interesting watching it now, knowing what we can get out of Chris Evans later on, stuff like that. I think it's interesting to watch. Yeah, it was just interesting to watch now, knowing the amount of movies that Chris Evans has done as Captain America, and it's just a joy to watch how he nailed it straight away.
It's actually a very good point. I forgot that completely. Before this, he was always, you know, a little bit of comedy, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What was the movie that he was in where he did the whipped cream? He's naked.
Yeah, not another teen movie.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I think Fantastic Four may have been one of his bigger movies.
Yeah, he was in that Scott Pilgrim. He was the jock in that, wasn't he? And
Yeah.
he was in Losers as well, a DC movie. He was the tech nerd in that.
Yeah, right. Was that before Captain America, was it?
Yeah, would have just, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be pretty close.
He was always the comedy relief, you're right.
Yeah.
What he was, yeah. The smart ass comedy relief. So, yeah, interesting choice, but worked out.
And the way they went from thin to big is just amazing. Like that technology is just so goddamn good. It was so well done. In fact, I remember the reason why I thought this movie was so good overall was because, like Thor, when you think about how are you going to make a Captain America movie without it being silly, where it's being taken seriously, and before watching the film, it's a pretty hard task to picture how you can make this character really, really believable. And I remember watching it for the first time thinking to myself, God damn, did they pull that off? And not only did they pull it off, but the whole propaganda tour that he went on when he first became Captain America, um, that was so ridiculous and campy, which was obviously, a bit meta,
Yeah,
throwing it in our face. That was so well done, man. The
yeah.
way they did that was brilliant. And Captain America's costume as Captain America in those propaganda ones. I remember when I first watched it again, I thought that costume was really cool. I thought that was it. It's done. That's his costume. And it's not. That's the shitty one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I really, yeah. Again, just thoroughly enjoy this movie. About Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah, real good
I,
casting. Sebastian Stan, we get Bucky Barnes.
I do have to admit, nothing against Haley Atwell. I think she's great, and I loved her solo series. But I've never understood this massive love for her and her character. I just don't get it. Like, I want Captain America to have a happy ending too, and that would have been enough for me. But I don't need Captain Carter and Peggy this and Peggy that. Am I
I,
wrong here?
I like the connection between the both of them. I guess. He always wanted the happy ending. I never actually did watch the Peggy Carter series.
No, it's pretty good. It
Yeah.
is, I would admit.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes was an interesting one. I wasn't a biggest fan first watching of Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes, but then when the next movie came along, I was turned completely. I'm going, yeah, this guy's good. But yeah, originally I thought his performance in this first one wasn't great, but rewatching it, it's okay. What do you think?
When I first saw it, it threw me off because the way I always pictured Bucky was a small little kid, and obviously later, like Cap gets bigger. However, they obviously flipped it a bit where to make it more believable as well, where Captain's the shrink and Bucky's your normal average bloke. So I get that. I think that is, because if they didn't do that, then Cap wouldn't have been able to have met Bucky as a childhood friend. He would have had to have met him later in the war, which could have still worked, but it wouldn't have been as much of a connection and a friendship as what they do, like blood brothers.
Yeah.
Um, so as far as his acting, though, which was your question, sorry. Yeah, look, I thought it was fine, but I didn't really question him in the future after watching him
Yeah.
first in John Carter, Warlord of
Okay,
Mars,
yeah.
which a lot of people didn't like, but I thought he was really good in that.
Yeah, good point. Well, he definitely proved me wrong later on in all the other movies. He's perfect for the role now. We can't see anybody else. Before we get to Red Skull, I just also want to point out to the Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark. Now that again is interesting. Now that again we've seen the other movies of Tony Stark, sort of growing as a character. It's kind of nice to go back and see his dad in
Yeah,
sort of Tony Stark's sort of format. And I quite like his representation of Howard Stark. I think it was great. He added a bit of comedy to it as well, but also
yeah,
he seemed like a good friend.
yeah, he's a good actor. That guy, I like him.
Yeah. Is it just me or should he be Gomez in Adam's Family?
Yeah, yeah. I've actually seen him in a few things. It was I don't know what the hell it was. It was something recently, and he didn't have the mustache, obviously. And I'm watching him for like a good 45 minutes, loving his role in this film. And I'm like, man, I know I've seen this guy somewhere, and I couldn't be bothered looking it up. And then it bugged me, and I looked it up, and it was him. Yeah.
So we'll move on to Red Skull. What do you think of the performance of Hugo Weaving?
Oh, fuck Hugo Weaving, man. I get really annoyed with actors that act the way they do after they've done a role. I mean, I look, to contradict myself as well, I also do like to say you don't really know what's happened in Hollywood. So it's kind of hard to judge a celebrity when you only are told what you're told. But I mean, you can also blame Marvel. I mean, maybe Marvel's negotiations weren't. Maybe he wasn't promised everything that he was promised. I don't know. But just the way it happened, that's not your question, though, is it, dude? You said the acting. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I guess what you're saying, it could be either way. Like, it seems like now with what's his face that was Crossbones, that Marvel might have a bit of a history there.
Yeah, yeah. There is some skeletons coming out of the closet with Marvel, like in the effects department and things like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I like the performance. Hugo Weaving's well, he's a professional villain basically.
Mm.
Um, I do find he's even though it's pretty close to spot on. I did find his German accent a bit annoying.
Did you?
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's just me. But yeah, other than that, I can't. Again, another thing, I can't think of anybody else to play it, even though somebody else did. So yeah,
I think the actor they got, which I hate saying this because I actually really like the actor, but the one that they got to play Dum Dum Dugan, with the big mustache,
oh yeah, yeah.
I like that actor. We've seen him in
Mhm.
heaps. He's been in Green Arrow and all this other sorts of
Yeah,
stuff.
he's
Arrow,
Damien
sorry.
Dark, isn't he? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and he's a good actor. I
yeah,
just, I just don't think that was the right casting choice for that role. But
yeah.
still, doesn't really
Um,
matter.
Also, too, that I don't know that character too much. I've only seen him pop up a couple of times. I didn't even make the connection to the actor when I've seen him in the comics, and I'm going, "Oh yeah," and watching it last night, I'm going, "Oh yeah, he's supposed to be that guy." But
Yeah,
also,
yeah,
too, like he's on the Battle of a Wharf. He's like on the battlefield, and he's like, oh, whatever, 100 yards away, and he's got a pump action shotgun. That's not going to do anything. That's not going to reach anybody. You need to be close.
yeah. Maybe he thinks everyone going down is him.
Yeah, true. I I think a pump action is a cool weapon to have, like effects wise, like it looks cool. Like I always think of the Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. So it is a cool look. Don't get me wrong, pump action. I think it looks cool in him too in the movie. But I was just thinking, he's not going to get anybody from that distance.
I still don't know how Arnold was able to do that whole turnaround, load, turn. Every time I do that, I shoot myself.
uh, uh, you got some more information?
Not really. The only other things I got is, we learnt Steve Rogers can't get drunk, which I thought was a
Yeah,
great little touch because I know in the comics Wolverine can't get drunk. So it's almost a shame that you won't see Steve again, as far as we know, because in the future with Wolverine, it would have been great to see those two drinking and we both can't get drunk. Um, I'm glad that they fit the Howling Commandos in there. I thought that was really good. It's a shame that they didn't have the rights to what they do now because I know Kevin Feige really wanted to have Wolverine in the flashback of the war because it would have made sense.
yeah.
Logan was there.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I didn't know until watching it this time is the Stan Lee cameo. The guy next to him that Stan Lee's talking to, that's the original actor that played Captain America.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what else have I got? The only other thing I've got is that the way it ended, man, it was freaking brilliant because I remember again watching it for the first time, and you're at the end, the good guys have won, but then he's gone down in the plane, and it's almost, and the black comes up, and you actually think to yourself for a second, this could actually be the end. The credits could roll any second, and then they shoot the Times Square bit where he's in the future. And I just remember saying to myself, yeah, man, thank God. Yeah, we get to see that now, this iconic moment in comic history. Not because I thought maybe they'd do it in like the beginning of the Avengers movie or something. And it was just, oh, that was so cool to see, man. So cool. And the way they threw you off as well, where he wakes up and you think he's still in the past and he's not. They've just put him in this room. Oh, mwah, chef's
Yeah.
kiss to the right.
He'd been to that baseball game because I did think that because he did say 1941 game. Like
Yeah.
he was set in 1943 was when the actual story was. So of course he's yeah.
No way I would have picked that up. No way.
Well, I think that's what it said on the radio. It said today's Tuesday, something, 1941. And I'm just like, but it was 1943 when he was fighting Red Skull. Anyway.
Yeah. That's all of my notes, mate.
Right. So just an overall summary and give it a score out of 10.
Well, it definitely still holds up. This is a movie that I think we can go back over and over and over again. Unlike some of the other ones that you might get a little sick of. So for me, this one is a solid 8.5. I was going to say 8, but 8.5 just for the effort that went into this beautiful film, man. Really, really good. Yeah.
Yep, agree. Yep. Well, look, for me, same thing. It still holds up. I think, for such a movie that all the actors delivered their part really well, I thought too, and which was at the time quite a surprise. And I thought the plot was fantastic. It's an easy watch. It's an entertaining watch. It still is. I'll definitely still watch it again and within the next year or so. I have no problems. If somebody would chuck it on tomorrow night, I'll be just like, yeah, I'll sit down and watch it. So yeah.
So easy to get sucked in again, just a scene or two, and you're there.
Yeah. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 as well. So, which is my high score so far. So yeah, you gave Iron Man an 8.5 the first time.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that. Okay.
Hulk 7 you gave Iron Man 2 6 and Thor 8.
Yeah, okay.
And we got the big one next, Avengers.
Oh, dude.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, actually.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, actually. I'm looking forward to it.
I've been holding that off because I've been thinking, I haven't watched that for years. And I'll go, no, I'll wait till we actually have to review it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I don't think I've ever been more excited for anything in my life than watching the Avengers for the first time, other than maybe Spider-Man movies for the first time, Yeah, cool, man. All right. So thank you very much for joining us for this Through the MCU, Captain America, the first Avenger. We will be back, just like Grodd said, for the next part for the Avengers Part 1. Part 1, number 1. Do catch us hopefully next week for another live chat. Otherwise, we will be back as soon as there is some great things to talk about. Go check out our sponsor, Comx, where you can buy as many comics as you want, and they have one flat shipping rate. All Australian comics, Australian creators, Australian designers, cartoonists, colorists, inkers, everything you can think of, Comx. And as usual, AussieVerse. What is it, Grodd?
For life.
Exactly.
Not as good as Sharif.
This show is sponsored by the Comx shop. Check out comx.cx for all things Comx and find out what Comx is all about. We hope you enjoyed the show.